Americana. Shout out to all our fans who've been waiting and loving and waiting for episode number 117 of Barbershop Podcast.
Yeah, sorry to everyone who's watching live and wondering what's going on.
I know we're flawlessly perfect 98.9% of the time.
I think that was a record 3 false starts tonight.
Yeah, not since the Peter Arsenal episode number 1, right? We had to do that one 3 times.
Well, at least we didn't make it all the way through this time.
Yeah, we didn't waste 2 hours before finding out it didn't work. But it works. It works wonderfully each and every week. Barbershop Podcast, bringing you music, live music. Even if you're in the comfort of your own home, we manage to bring you live music. It's happening in the clubs and the venues in your town, certainly in this town of Hamilton, Ontario. Look in your listings, find some live music, find some entertainment, find a reason to live on a cold winter day. We're doing that. We're bringing them to you. Ryan Cannon, Gary Greenland, as usual. A great night. It doesn't matter that it's been, minus 100 for 100 days.
Yeah.
It doesn't get us down. We're not defeated, are we?
It's warm in here.
It's toasty. It's toasty at Barbershop Podcast because of the love. We bring it with love and tenderness. It's like the smell of warm bread on a winter's night, or cocoa perhaps. You know what it is, Ryan Cannon? You know what it is? It's the eve. It's the eve of a great day, of a great man in music. And we have with us tonight an ambassador, a true fan, a true disciple of one of the greats of I can't call him a great country artist, a great folk artist. He's been called the original punk. He's hard to define. He's magical. He's mystical. He's Johnny Cash. And there's a man named Paul Anthony and a group of guys with a group called Cash who have decided to make Johnny Cash, his message, his music, their mission. They do it impeccably. They do it beautifully. They do it with conviction. They do it with strength. And they do it with the kind of ability that is hard to come by. And we're going to bring it to you tonight. We're going to show you and let you hear a little bit of what Johnny Cash means to the music community at large. And I'm certainly going to learn a lot about Johnny Cash that I didn't know tonight. And I want to welcome to the studio Mr. Paul Anthony. How are you doing tonight, Paul?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having us on your podcast. It's amazing.
I'm so glad that you made it on this very special occasion, and you've brought with you Steve Petrie, who's brought his Telecaster and his wicked licks in the studio tonight. How you doing? It's good. It's good. It's good that you're here. And we've got Kurk Bernard on the bass, stand-up bass. I always love when someone is loving a curvy lady in the basement.
Well, it's nice to be down here.
It's nice. It's nice. It's nice to be had. So
it is a bass.
Yeah. It's not convenience. It's not like the Steinberg stick bass days. You have to actually negotiate your way around. Boxo Studio is intimate. It's got a magical sound, and you're going to hear it tonight. And you're going to swear that Johnny Cash was in your living room or your bedroom or your multimedia room or wherever you receive Barbershop Podcast. We are available on any number of formats. Let's talk about Johnny Cash. And one of the first questions I wanted to ask you, Paul, was, were you a Johnny Cash guy who became a music fan, or were you a music fan who somewhere discovered Johnny Cash along the way?
Well, I was a music fan. I got my first guitar when I was 7. And always been a fan of country music, and it just kind of evolved, and enjoyed some of Johnny's story, Willie Nelson's story, and all of those old kind of other side of the track performers and songwriters, and the badasses of country music. And I always, like everyone, was kind of a fan of that, and not just the musical story, but his life as well. Through his booze years and his drug years and his Christian years, and all of that.
He wrote his life, and we got to be part of it. It's an amazing
story, probably one of the best stories that anyone's ever had. The gentleman is certainly, and I call him a gentleman. He deserves that. He's just a music icon. I don't think there's anyone greater than Johnny Cash, in my opinion.
And I think everywhere in the world, at some point, some 15-year-old has said to someone, "Who is Johnny Cash?" and got looked at like he was growing another head out of his shoulder by someone who was older and more schooled in music. I think Johnny Cash has such a regard and such a reverence worldwide that when you begin to discover music, it's almost an assumption that this is gospel. You know, that if you don't understand that Johnny Cash is at the very roots of what's all of the music is about, then don't enter here.
You know, he's the founding father of not just his music, but his drummer, for instance, W.S. Fluke Holland, who we've had the pleasure to record with and perform with. You know, these are not just musical icons. These are folks who made the foundation to country and rock and roll and all of that music, and this is where this hails from. Yeah.
Now, yeah, there's pictures of him. He was like hanging with Jerry Lee Lewis and Elvis Presley, and there was a whole explosion of music in the 50s where there wasn't the hard walls and definitions of subcategories of music, but there was certainly,
like you said, in '55 there's that famous picture at Sun Studio with Jerry Lee and Roy Orbison and Johnny Cash and Elvis Presley. They kind of build that as the $1 Million Quartet. Now, they called it the $1 Million Quartet is because all these guys were eventually going to be $1 million record salespeople and songwriters, and they just did all of that. And true to what happened then, you know, of course, talking to Fluke Holland and listening about their stories, and back then they didn't know who they were going to be, just write music and singing songs. Well, here they end up being the founding fathers of country music, gospel, rock and roll, all of that.
Yeah, right at the root of that whole thing. Yeah. Now, Mr. Steve Petrie, I love your chicken picking. I love the way you play a Telecaster. Telecaster is one of those true instruments where there's disciples again and masters of it. There's not a lot of room to hide in an instrument like that. And in an ensemble like this, again, I'm interested as a player. Were you attracted to Johnny Cash early, or is this something that came along to you later after you were a guitar player?
Well, I've been exposed to Johnny my whole life. My father was a country performer around the Hamilton area, so I started playing with my dad when I was 4.5 years old, and not to mention all the house parties and kitchen parties before that. So it was, as far as I remember breathing, I've been around country music, and Johnny included as well. So Johnny's just part of, you know, the...
So you've probably seen every piece of vinyl that Johnny's face has been on
you got it.
Over the years,
I've seen almost every vinyl of everybody growing up in my house. So it's a great way to grow up.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. I would say you sit your children down to a diet of Johnny Cash. You know, you'll do well. That is a whole bunch of life lesson right there. Yep. Kurt, how about you? Were you like someone who loved punk music and rock and roll and came to Johnny Cash, or were you steeped in this tradition?
I've been a country music lover my whole entire life. My father and my uncle Lionel both play music and sing, and they play multiple instruments. My uncle Lionel plays a Telecaster, fiddle and sings. My dad plays rhythm and sings, and it's always been traditional country music. So Johnny Cash has been around our house for years, for sure.
Yeah, I think Johnny Cash should be around everyone's house for years. We're going to start off, get back to a little more stories, interesting stories about Johnny Cash and about Paul Anthony and his journey and his recordings. But what we love to do here at Barbershop Podcast is expose live music. This is as close as you can get to live music if you're not sitting here right now. But you can go out and you can follow live music. You can support live music. But we're going to hear some Johnny Cash right here from Paul Anthony and Cash at Barbershop Podcast.
Hello, I'm not Johnny Cash. Well, I hear that train coming and it's rolling round the bend. I ain't seen the sunshine since I don't know when. Stuck in Folsom Prison, that time keeps dragging on. But that train keeps rolling on down to San Antonio. Well, I was just a baby and my mama told me, son, always be a good boy, don't ever play with guns. I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die. When I hear that whistle blowing, I hang my head and cry. Listen, sounds from Luther Perkins. Shoot it! I bet that there's rituals in that fancy dining car. Probably drinking coffee and smoking big cigars. Well, I knew I had it coming. I know I can be free. Boy, those people keep on moving. Hell, that's what tortures me. Now, Bob Wooten did some of that stuff too. Here's what it sounded like. Shoot it! Well, free me from this prison and that railroad train was mine. Bet I'd move it on a little farther down the line. Well, far from Folsom Prison, that's where I want to stay. Well, I'd let that lonesome whistle blow my blues away.
And that's Paul Anthony with Cash doing Folsom Prison Blues, one of the many, many great songs from Johnny Cash. So share with me, if I walked up to you and you said, I play in a Johnny Cash, and I didn't know anything about Johnny Cash, what's your elevator pitch about Johnny Cash? If you say, anything to somebody about why they should give a shit about Johnny Cash, what would it be?
I would say Johnny Cash is the most recognized musical influence of all time.
You know what? I think if you ask the Beatles and you ask Elvis and you ask any icon, they'll go back to Johnny Cash. You ask Roy Orbison and go back to Johnny Cash. Yeah. And it's true. And the man was truly a gentleman and a songwriter. He elevated the honesty of songwriting, because there's things that were attributed to songwriters of a later era that he was doing before that, as far as ripping himself open, right?
He not only wore his heart on his sleeve, he sang about it. He sang about every single aspect of his life, from building cars in Michigan, to hiding in a cave and wanting to die, to being a womanizer and a drug abuser and a boozer. But ultimately, the world's most recognized songwriter from the heart.
And you believe it's the conviction that's the crux of what Johnny Cash is.
That's all he wanted to do. That was his life, was to tell stories with music and word.
All right. So a lot of people know about Elvis and where he was born in Mississippi and his little story. What's Johnny Cash's early story?
Well, he was born in Arkansas in 1932. Actually, February the 26th, 1932. So this is going to make his 83rd birthday tomorrow. This is what makes this show so special and historic, even for us. This is a big deal, having your podcast go worldwide. Well, born in Arkansas, and, they were a distraught family. There was no money, like there was no money for anyone back then. And the government decided to fund a move for a whole whack of people in Arkansas. So they ended up moving to a county called Diaz, Arkansas, where the government would give them land and a couple of cows and some corn and cotton, and their job was to become self-sufficient with their gardening and their farming, and Johnny did that. He grew corn and he picked cotton and he did all that stuff. But while he was doing that stuff, he was writing songs and stories about his life and his childhood and all of those kind of musical memoirs that he wrote at a young age became musical history. Like 5 Feet High and Rising, for instance. That song evolved from the floods in Diaz County because the government moved into a land where it didn't filter the water off properly, so every rainstorm there was flooding up to their knees. And so he wrote a song about 5 feet high and rising. And so every little aspect of Johnny's life he wrote about, and that's what people listen to today.
Yeah, it's history. It's a true history.
It is now.
Yeah, it is now. Well put. Let's. We're going to get to something that you've played off. You recorded on your CD, Classic Johnny Cash, the Nashville Connection. You've got some wonderful stories about going down to Nashville.
It's amazing.
And where you recorded and who you recorded with.
It's you know what? I still have to pinch myself from time to time.
I would think so. I would think so. It's like it was a divine little moment.
It happened.
It happened.
Yeah.
It was meant to be. So we're going to play another great Johnny Cash song. This is off a CD that you can get off of Paul Anthony's website. The links will be there on the barbershoppodcast.com site. This is the great Ring of Fire on barbershoppodcast.com. Oh, you're darn tootin'. That'd be Ring of Fire, the great Johnny Cash song sung by Paul Anthony, tonight's guest. And Cash, we've got Kurk Bernard on bass and Steve Petrie on guitar. They are bringing it live. They are bringing it real. And we're telling the story of Johnny Cash on the eve of his birthday. We are bringing you the story of a man who has shaped so much in popular music on so many genres. And if we can educate another generation, if we can turn a few more people onto Johnny Cash, we know that's going to tumble and spiral into all kinds of other great music. So everyone's got a Johnny Cash story. I'm going to go around the room.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask all three of you to tell your favorite or easiest Johnny Cash story to remember? Let's start with you, Steve. Like Johnny Cash, it doesn't have to be like Johnny Cash in person, but something that happened with Johnny Cash, Johnny Cash's music, the night Johnny Cash was on TV that you had to negotiate it with your parents. What's your Johnny Cash story?
What's your favorite Johnny Cash song?
Well, geez, there's just so many. It's hard to say, but yeah. Well, actually, I've got my favorite Johnny Cash story.
There's so many great Johnny Cash stories.
The one that actually comes to mind. A little light bulb went off.
Yeah.
Was it a red one?
No, it wasn't actually. I used to play for a gentleman named Tommy Hunter. I was with Tommy Hunter for 12 and a half years, and Tommy used to talk about the time when Johnny Cash performed on the show. And he used to say that back then those screens were so small that when they were trying to show, they could only see Johnny because Tommy was so tall compared to how Johnny was. But and the funny thing was, I remember seeing that when I was a little kid.
You got the flashback. You're like,
yes, I had a little bit of a flashback. So that's about my favorite Johnny Cash story. Is
from the horse's mouth, as it were.
Yes.
All right. And how about you, Kurt? Do you have like a Johnny Cash story where you heard where he was in an alley somewhere or he negotiated something?
Actually, mine is about
Kirk and Johnny. So if I could just, Kirk and Johnny actually, they drank the same beer.
On the same night?
No.
Cold.
but I do have an alley story about Johnny Cash. It actually, it's a story from a friend of mine by the name of Steve Petico. They were playing a show, and Steve was playing in the opening band for Johnny Cash. And the backstage, I think it was the Capitol Theater in Belleville. And anyway, Steve was outside having a cigarette, and Johnny come out, and him and Steve were out there having a cigarette, and they weren't really talking, having a big conversation or anything, and all Johnny said to him was, "Don't tell June." True story. Yeah. Don't tell June.
Little sneaker. I love
so that's my alley story.
I love
Johnny
it.
Cash.
It's a good one. All right, Paul. What's the first Johnny story that comes to mind?
Well, not so much that it's a Johnny story, but because I've done the research on Johnny and his musical life, and when you say his musical life, you get a part of his life as well. That's his life. So I would have to say that that the Johnny moment that stands out for me, and I've recreated that too. Not that it was intentional to recreate, but Johnny had a manager, a Canadian manager by the name of Saul Holliff, London, Ontario. So when he was here in the 80s, they were doing a show at the Gardens in London. And on that day is the day that Johnny proposed to June. And not that I'm following Johnny's footsteps. It's not that at all, because this is more a tribute than it is anything else. But like you said earlier, the recording of the record at his home with the permission of his son and his musicians on our record, like all the stars are oddly aligned for some reason, question it or not question it. Well, I've met myself a brand new love, and not long ago here at Hamilton Place, I proposed to the woman that I'm about to marry in April. And so I would have to say that Johnny's proposal to June in London, in Canada, stands out for me to be, that Johnny moment for me.
Beautiful, beautiful, yeah. Tenuous but real connection here in the lifeblood that is music. We're going to feed it to you over the digitized airwaves. We can bring something that just touches on your heart strings and your emotions around the world this quickly, pixelized, brought to life right here at Barbershop Podcast, courtesy Paul Anthony and Cash. Anytime, guys.
Thank you.
Here's one that, so Johnny Cash had a couple of record labels that he was involved with. The first one, like as
I was explaining earlier, had to do with Sun Records, the $1 Million Quartet, Elvis and Carl Perkins and Jerry Lee. This song here is real important in Johnny's musical start, because this was Johnny's absolute first hit song at Sun Records in 1955. So I think it only fair that we should do this in memory of Johnny now. This is a song from '55, a little song called Cry, Cry, Cry. 1,
Everybody knows where you go when the sun goes down. Think you only live to see the lights uptown. Well, I wasted my time and I would try. Lights have lost their glow, you're gonna cry. Soon your sugar daddies will all be gone. Wake up some cold day and find you're alone. You call for me, but I'm gonna tell you bye. Turn around and walk away, you'll cry. You're gonna cry, and you'll cry alone. When everyone's forgotten and you're left on your own, you're gonna cry. Come on, Luther. I lie awake at night and wait till you come in. You stay a little while and then you're gone again. Every question that I ask, I get a lie. For every lie you tell, you're gonna cry. When your fickle love gets old, no one will care for you. Then you come back to me for a love that's true. I tell you no, and then you'll ask me why. I remind you all of this, you'll cry. You're gonna cry, and you'll cry me then. I'll hurt you when you think of the fool that you've been. You're gonna cry. You're gonna cry. You're gonna cry.
Johnny Cash's first #1 hit.
Johnny Cash, I don't care how you slice it.
Anyway, you gotta like it. And he, pretty early on, had a huge following internationally. Like, people loved Johnny Cash in England. They loved him in Germany and Sweden, like across Australia. He had a universal appeal, I think, that kind of Americans were proud of, and people from around the world got a honest taste of America during a time in the 50s when there was a lot of hubris and things going on. And there was a lot of, just like today, there's a lot of flash and popular music. Where did Johnny Cash, like looking back in hindsight and what Sam Phillips and Sun Records are doing and what he spun from there, was he still considered popular music at the time? Like, I mean, in the early days, how long did it take before Johnny Cash was...
Well, from 55 to 58, at Sun, this is when it all the foundation all started. Well, in 58, he left Sun Records to move on to Columbia. He was really enticed to come to Columbia in 58. So he went to Columbia, and all of that popular stuff from Cry, and all that he left behind at Sun Records still was amazing and very popular and done extremely well. Well, his time at Columbia Records was even better than that. It launched the icon, and again now with Columbia Records, there was a time where things were going so well. So Columbia said, Johnny, you got to do something here because people are losing interest.
And what year was 58, 59?
So 58 he left Sun Records, 59 he went to Columbia. And then, through all the way up to about 68, things were just amazing and enormous and in a big way, like no different than Elvis, if not a little bit bigger than Elvis, I would say. And then there come a lull in what Johnny was doing, and Johnny was, through his drug years, he'd lost focus, and he just lost his direction, as we all do.
In that era, in the late 60s, there was a lot of people, especially when you hit that era, you wonder, no one expected to have a longevity in this kind of music. It was 3, 4, 5 years was considered a very good run. Would be considered a good run. So when guys have been doing it for 15 years, they could be forgiven to think the Beatles come out or whoever the next great thing is, but they reinvent themselves, don't they?
Well, and this is what Johnny attempted to do with his Christian music. So Johnny did 4 Christian albums, and now he thought, well, there's another area of music that he hadn't tapped into. So he went through that whole exercise and done his Christian albums through 68 to 72, and there was a big lull in that action as well. And then all of a sudden, come to the 80s, where videos were now starting to be manufactured and produced. Well, Johnny got involved with videos. Johnny got involved with television and had his own Johnny Cash television show. So there was a whole lot of creativity that Johnny was still doing, but wasn't as influential as those early days that Johnny had.
That's fantastic. We've got a great CD here. You recorded it at Johnny's cabin. I mean, this is a story in itself, isn't it?
This is, and I tell people behind curtains or behind the door, did you say you could swear on this show?
Absolutely.
This CD is fucking amazing.
It is. It's fucking amazing.
That's all I can say. My wife-to-be and myself and our drummer, who's not here tonight, he's had a death in the family, so he's away, went down to Hendersonville, which is just a 20-minute drive outside of Nashville. Well, we discussed about, let's get to the root of it all. I had cancer in 07, and we all want to leave something behind when we're dead and gone. This is my dead and gone.
This is it.
This is it. I wanted to have an authentic record. So we thought, we got it all together with the Telecaster and the stand-up bass and the vocals and the Johnny train snare sound and from Fluke Holland and the rhythm section and working on the Johnny voice and getting as authentic as we can. I thought, why? I want to record. So we went to a local fella, and I just didn't feel it. I thought, you know what? Let's make a phone call to Cash Cabin, to John Carter, which is Johnny's son, and see if we can't just take the boys down to Hendersonville, Tennessee, and record a Johnny Cash record in the same room that Johnny did 95% of his recordings. They said, okay, let's do that. John Carter said, come on down. So we thought, let's push the envelope just a tad more. What's the chance of getting Bob Wooten, Fluke Holland, and Dave Rowe to come and perform on the record, even if it's one song? So Chuck Turner is the engineer and works for John Carter at this studio, Cash Cabin, private studio. Said, you know what, Paul, let me call you back. Let me make one call and see what I can do. Well, he contacted Dave Rowe, who was Johnny's stand-up bass player after Marshall Grant passed on. Dave Rowe then called Fluke Holland, Johnny's drummer. Actually, Fluke as well, by the way, is the drummer recorded on Blue Suede Shoes of Carl Perkins. Johnny was one of the original drummers with Elvis, as well as Jerry Lee. So with everyone that's gone now, Fluke's the only one. So when he tells a story, it's got to be right because there's no one else to prove him wrong. And he tells us that often. So then Dave Rowe talked to Fluke Holland. Fluke said, yeah, let's do this. Well, they wanted me just to focus on the Johnny vocal. So in order to do that, they wanted to bring in a rhythm player. Now, you won't recognize the name. His last name is Scruggs. He's the grandson of Earl Scruggs, who was the son of Randy Scruggs. The best rhythm player Nashville can provide. Well, then we wanted a lead guitar player. Though Luther Perkins has passed on. Bob Wooten was the guitar player after Luther passed on. Well, Bob Wooten's not doing so well. Not healthy. So we couldn't do that. So we thought we'd get a hold of Marty Stewart. Marty Stewart, great guitar player, played live with Johnny lots. Marty Stewart couldn't do it. But Marty Stewart's lead guitar player, who's cousin Kenny Vaughan, who is an amazing guitar player, sat in and did our lead guitar on this record. So not only did we record this with the approval of John Carter Cash, Johnny's engineer of his later years, Chuck, the drummer, original and only drummer that Johnny ever had, W.S. Fluke Holland, Dave Rowe, Johnny's stand-up bass player, Chris Scruggs, and cousin Kenny Vaughan. So he organized this team of players to put this record together. So this Johnny record could not be any close to a Johnny record that Johnny did.
You had to do your part, that's for sure.
Well, so yeah, I was certainly the weak. I was certainly the weak link in the party. So the team was set. It was done. The date that was set was April the 11th. So I, with my future wife, jumped in an SUV with Bill Carruthers, who was our drummer, and headed south. We arrived halfway down there. Well, I got a sinus infection. It was just crazy. But it helped, believe it or not. So we got to Cash Cabin. It's the property of John Carter Cash, where he lives, just where the original Cash House is. It's still there as well. So we got there at 9 in the morning. We chatted a little while, and then pulled out the instruments and set up, and got to meet everyone, and which is real cool. That I still think it's amazing. As so my wife to be, Stephanie Lynn, she went down to the local supermarket and bought some meats and sandwiches and things, and which I think was even more cool than me just doing this record. But here Stephanie was in the kitchen of June's, where June made lunch and dinners and breakfast in June's kitchen, and Chuck come out and said to Stephanie that, here, you can use these dishes. I'm sure June wouldn't mind. So we had our lunch on dishes that June made food for Johnny on, which is just, so as I say, this is now to close now.
It's as soaked in cash as you could get.
This is fucking amazing.
It's fucking amazing. You're going to hear one of the great all-time classics off of Paul Anthony and Cash. Classic Johnny Cash. It's a CD you're going to want. It is soaked in realism. It's the real deal. And for you tonight on Barbershop Podcast, this is I Walk the Line.
I keep the ends out for the time is mine.
recorded in the cabin of Johnny Cash, basically in Johnny Cash's kitchen. That's Paul Anthony and Cash. Beautiful thing. I Walk the Line. I want to talk about our sponsors, people who support us a little bit every week, help us do this thing that we do every week. And we want to talk about hamiltonartist.ca. We love hamiltonartist.ca. They do promotional printing on materials of any variety. They print anything on anything. If you are an artist, a band, a business, an organization, if you want to print a banner, a t-shirt, a hat, a mouse pad, keychains, mug, if you name it, you need to get a hold of, listen to me now, hamiltonartists.ca. They're online at hamiltonartist.ca, or you can find them right there at the Delta, the Great Delta, right where we're located in Hamilton at 1141 Main Street East at Balmoral. That's right across from No Frills, right past, well, they're basically at the corner of Balmoral and Houghton, is it? No, it's Balmoral and Main Street, 1141 Main Street East. You can go onto their online store. You can ask about their membership discounts. They've got all kinds of things like custom artware that I love. If you have a custom project, they will work with you on it. Nothing is too big. Nothing is too small. If they can't help you out, they're the kind of people who will tell you where you need to go, and that's what you need, a community that supports what you do. HamiltonArtist.ca. They are great supporters of Barbershop Podcast, and you should be supporters of them. Give them a call. All right, guys, Johnny Cash, we were talking about his life, his legacy, his music. He influenced so many people. Why do you think that everyone from Joe Strummer, to like all the rock and roll guys, what was the element about Johnny Cash that gave him that legitimacy at every level of music that eluded other country artists?
It's simple. It's sincerity. I think it was sincerity. He wrote a book.
But Buck Owens, that Bakersfield, he wrote that shit too, but it didn't resonate. What was it about? Was it that he lived that life where he admitted that he was really that dirty and he had those failings? Attitude
was probably a big thing for
yeah.
sure.
Because he didn't
was
shirk.
He went through it. He did it all.
He lived it, and he sang about it. And, there was a time, that Bakersfield stuff, where a lot of the record companies or Columbia, for instance, were really trying to force him to get, a top 10, forcing him to do this. And when it's forced, you and I both know that it never works. When it just happens and the stars are aligned, it works. Like Kurk says, it's attitude and it's sincerity. It's all of who made him.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's special. And if you want to get a taste of it, you'll never see Johnny Cash again. Unfortunately, we lost him. And we'll miss him dearly. His music will live forever. But there's something magical about a live music experience. And, there's a huge difference between, a cover band and a tribute band. A tribute band has reverence and does their homework and gives as much of the experience that made such a difference on a regular basis. And it's an investment, and the cream is definitely separated. You've seen it. There's a lot of people who want to play Johnny Cash.
Well, there's a lot of folks who will dress up and wear a Johnny wig, and we try to recreate the authenticity of Johnny Cash, not just the musical sounds, but the storyline based on every track or every song that we've done and what Johnny was doing in his life at that time that he wrote that song. And so we try to give the accurate information and timeline for a particular song that we're doing. Now, we try real hard, to have the Johnny hair or the Johnny vocal and the rhythm section and the guitar and upright bass. We try hard to recreate that sound. And I would have to say, just from the testimonials from the shows that we've been at, that we're doing our job correctly. And we've got over 3,000 hours of research to do this. So, yes, I'm not a Johnny Cash look-alike. I'm not any of that. I'm a tribute artist to tell the Johnny Cash musical story, and that's what differentiates us from whoever down the road.
Absolutely. And how lucky are we that here in Hamilton, Ontario and surrounding areas, we could get a taste, such a huge taste of something that is lost to us forever in a live music experience. But we have it here tonight at Barbershop Podcast, and we're going to give you another sample of it right here, right now at Barbershop Podcast.
Here's a real cool story. And Fluke Holland told us about this story as well. Chris Christopherson, who is rest him and his life and how he's going right now. He's just been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, so he's not. Maybe that's not even public information. Well, maybe it is now. Anyway, this is a song that Chris Christopherson wrote. Oh yes. There's a picture in the album Once You Buy It. Of me signing on the mantle of the fireplace in Cache Cabin. And, I spoke earlier about the stars being aligned. Well, the stars were aligned even in this little minute portion of us being there, where I'm actually signing on the mantle directly above Chris Christopherson. There was like a spot available for me to sign just above his name, which was, again, just one of those real cool fucking things. So Chris wrote this song, flew in on a helicopter because he was a helicopter pilot, flew into Johnny's property, landed, ran up to the door, knock, knock. Now, Billy Carruthers tells this story a lot better than I could. He tells about an 18-minute story about, well, maybe it's that long. Anyway, about this story. And when Johnny and Chris sing it live, it's a beautiful story. And I'm going to do a little bit of Chris in this song as well as Johnny as a tribute to kind of both of them. Here's a song called Sunday Morning Coming Down from 1969.
I woke up Sunday morning with a way to hold my head that didn't hurt. And the beer I had for breakfast wasn't bad. I had one more for dessert. When I fumbled in my closet, through my clothes and found my cleanest dirty shirt. I washed my face and combed my hair, stumbled down the stairs to greet the day. So when Chris would sing with Johnny, this would be Chris's lines. I smoked my mind the night before on cigarettes and songs I was singing. I lit my first and watched a small kid cussing at a can he was kicking. I crossed the empty street, got the Sunday smell of someone frying chicken. It took me back to something that I lost somewhere, somehow along the way. Come on, boys. On a Sunday morning sidewalk, wishing, Lord, that I was stoned. There's something in a Sunday makes the body feel alone. There's nothing short of dying, half as lonesome as the sound. The sleeping city sidewalk, Sunday morning coming down. In the park I saw Daddy with a laughing little girl that he was swinging. I stopped beside a Sunday school and listened to the songs they were singing. I headed down the street and somewhere far a lonely bell was ringing. It echoed through the canyons like the disappearing dreams of yesterday. On a Sunday morning sidewalk, wishing, Lord, that I was stoned. There's something in a Sunday makes the body feel alone. There's nothing short of dying, half as lonesome as the sound. The sleeping city sidewalk, Sunday morning coming down.
The great Sunday Morning Coming Down one of the great classics of Americana music, something that's been branded Americana now. It was just music, and now we're talking about the stories, not necessarily of the South, but of the people. Real stories from one of the greats, Johnny Cash. We've got Paul Anthony and Cash in the house tonight. I want to give a shout out to them, and I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Shenanigans. We were at Shenanigans tonight. I brought the girls. We had some wicked hamburgers and said hi to the folks and got our pizza. They make the best pizza at Shenanigans. They are located at 1305 Main Street East, the corner of Houghton and Main in Hamilton, Ontario, right across from Delta High School. As the locals will tell you, the old DiMaggio's. Now at Shenanigans, it's like it used to be in the day. People laugh. And it's got nothing to do with this show. Like, no one, I doubt they even watch this show in there, right? They have disc jockeys, a pool night, dart night. People laugh, some good food, whatnot. They're not a music club, but they love what we do because they're Hamiltonians. They're independent business owners. They're proud of what we do. We're proud of what they do. We're neighbors and friends. We go there. We support them. They support us. So if you want to go out and have a good pint for a good price, you want to have some food that's delicious, you want to be treated good, go to 1305 Main Street East, Shenanigans. Tell them Kevin sent you and show them a little bit of love. Paul Anthony and Cash in the house tonight. They have recorded a beautiful album at the cabin of Johnny Cash's son with Johnny Cash's producer or engineer, many members of the original band. These are people who don't have a long time left to share what they've been blessed with, and I think they saw an opportunity to work with Paul Anthony, with someone who had true reverence for Johnny Cash's music and wanted to share it with him, and they recorded music with him. And it is awesome. And this is the CD. It is available. We're going to have the link for it at barbershoppodcast.com. You got your website. What's your website, Paul, that people can go to?
It's cashmusic.ca.
Cashmusic.ca. You'll find that at barbershoppodcast.com. Buy it from there. Make sure any of the proceeds go to the artist. This is a labor of love. And we're going to play one of the great songs of Johnny Cash, and there are so many. Man in Black. Right here, barbershoppodcast.com.
Well, I wonder why I always dress in black. Why I never see bright colors on my back. Why does my appearance seem to have a somber tone? What is the reason for the bling that I have on? I wear the black for the poor and beaten down.
That's Paul Anthony and Cash. A little sweet something off the classic Johnny Cash Nashville Connection, recorded live at Cash Cabin. A sweet piece of music celebrating the music of Johnny Cash. They're in Boxo's studio at Barbershop Podcast. I'm not going to waste any of your time with chit-chat. We're going to get right down to the sweet, sweet sounds. Paul Anthony and Cash at barbershoppodcast.com.
And here's one from 1958. A little song called Don't Take Your Guns to Town.
A young cowboy named Billy Joe grew restless on the farm. Boy filled with wanderlust who really meant no harm. Changed his clothes and shined his boots and combed his dark hair down. Mother cried as he walked out, "Don't take your guns to town, son. Leave your guns at home, Bill. Don't take your guns to town." He laughed and kissed his mom and said, "Your Billy Joe's a man. I can shoot as quick and straight as anybody can. Wouldn't shoot without a cause, I'd gun nobody down." Right again as he rode away, "Don't take your guns to town, son. Leave your guns at home, Bill. Don't take your guns to town." Sang a song as on he rode, his guns hung to his hips. Rode into a cattle town, a smile upon his lips. Stopped and walked into a bar and laid his money down. Mother cried his words again, "Don't take your guns to town, son. Leave your guns at home, Bill. Don't take your guns to town." Drank his first strong liquor then to calm his shaking hand. Tried to tell himself at last that he'd become a man. Dusty cowpoke at his side began to laugh him down. Heard again his mother's words, "Don't take your guns to town, son. Leave your guns at home, Bill. Don't take your guns to town." Filled with rage, and Billy Joe reached for his gun to draw. Stranger drew his gun first and fired before he saw. Billy Joe fell to the floor, the crowds all gathered round. Wondered at his final words, "Don't take your guns to town, son. Leave your guns at home, Bill. Don't take your guns to town."
Mortal words of the outlaw. Well, Johnny Cash, Man in Black, one of the greatest influences in modern music, American music, world music, and he is being represented, honored, tributed tonight here at Barbershop Podcast by Paul Anthony on the eve of Johnny Cash's birthday. Johnny would have been 83 years old tomorrow. We lost him, and tragically we lost one of the greats, but what a body of work he left. And he left a body of work because he shared his emotions. He shared his struggles. He shared his story with us, and he surrounded himself with people who loved him. And thank goodness for the recording industry, because we have it for eternity. We have it forever. Just like this episode, as I said to Kurt, you guys will never be younger or prettier. So it's nice that you are preserved on the internet forever. And now future generations will be able to reference Johnny Cash, and it's so great that we have the honor to do that. We're in the short strokes of the program. We've talked a bit about Johnny Cash. We've enjoyed his music. We're gonna play one more before we say goodbye. I know you've got one special song saved up. Yeah, why don't you tell us a story of what you're gonna play last for us?
This story really impacts me a whole lot too. No different than, the Reznor of 29-year-old drug addict, you know, wanted to commit suicide and just was in a bad part of his life when Reznor wrote this song. Johnny took this song and kind of made it his own. In fact, even Reznor will say that it belongs to Johnny now. Johnny used the identical words to this song, but he interpreted it just a little bit different. So the message in this song for Johnny was for Johnny, and this was the last song that he recorded, and everyone's seen it on video, you know, him with that glass of wine and the piano, and this was his last days.
And to me, it was very representative that Johnny Cash could look at something like, and just see the song, hear the words, and it resonated with him. He didn't give a fuck who Trent Reznor was, or Nine Inch Nails, or that he wasn't. It didn't matter. He said that it was a good song, and I would like to do that.
The meaning behind the words, and that's it's probably one of the reasons again why Johnny ended up being the icon that he still is because he had meat to what he did, as opposed to just being a puppy mill of music.
Well, you hear this song a lot, but you don't hear it like this. You get to hear it tonight, barbershoppodcast.com.
So again, we're going to do this on behalf of Johnny and Reznor, of course, and everyone else that's suffering with whatever there is they're suffering. And for myself, it was cancer in '07, so I kind of interpreted the words in this song for myself, and it probably comes off to be, as Kurk has said in the past, probably the best track that we do in our show. This is the last song that Johnny recorded, a little song called Hurt. We're going to do it our way, and I hope you enjoy it.
I hurt myself today. See if I still feel. I focus on the pain. The only thing that's real. The needle tears the heart. The old familiar sting. Try to kill it all the way. I remember everything. What have I become? My sweetest friend. Everyone I know goes away in the end. You could have it all. I am pirate. I will let you down. I will make you I wear this crown of thorns upon my liar's chair, full of broken thoughts I cannot repair. Beneath the stains of time, feeling disappears. You are someone else. I'm still right here. What have I become? My sweetest friend. Everyone I know goes away in the end. You could have it all. find a way.
Oh, that's Hurt. Sweet as Hurt. Great Johnny Cash. Rick Rubin recorded song done by Paul Anthony and Cash. In the studio tonight we have Kirk Bernard on the stand-up bass, Steve Petrie on guitar, Bill Carruthers, who could not make it tonight, but who was part of the band. A band that you should check out. Anyone who was duly impressed tonight, any gigs coming up in the near future you'd like to make them aware of?
We have an amazing show coming up in Niagara Falls at the Seneca Theatre in Niagara Falls on the Canadian side. So we'll have some video behind us of Johnny's musical life story. We'll tell a lot of stories similar to what we've done tonight. You'll hear the authenticity of Johnny's musical life, the sounds of Johnny Cash. If you've never been to a Johnny Cash show before, this is very similar. If you've been to a Johnny Cash show before, close your eyes. You'll be there again.
Well said. Each and every week, Barbershop Podcast bringing you the very best in music and the very best in people, trying to bring out the best in people. Love someone, hug someone, tell someone who's close to you that you love them, that they mean something to you. Just like Ryan Cannon, Gary Greenland, I love you guys. You mean something to me. You make me sound good. I don't know about making me look good. We got to upgrade the cameras. More Vaseline.
If we upgrade the cameras, you won't look as good. 'Cause
I know.
Everything's nice and fuzzy.
That's the problem.
Just like me. Why do you think I got the light on my head so you can't see all this that's going on?
Well, once you hit a $1.80, it's
Yeah.
like it's tough, right?
I haven't seen a $1.80 since I was 12.
I haven't seen a $1.80 in my pocket since I was 15. Jesus. It's true. Barbershop Podcast. Lots of fun. Lots of real music, guys. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for
having us. It's
having
a pleasure and an honor every week. Thank you. If you like the show, share it. Tell people about it. It's real. It's happening. We're doing it every week here. BarbershopPodcast.com. Take care. Thanks for coming out.